Komplexität. Ebow. Punani Power. Okay. Das Ende aller Dinge ist ein Game Over. Caravaggio wird geköpft vom Medusa. Der König starb, bevor er den Vesuv sah. Alle Namen kursiv, meiner Futura. Bleib mal cool, alles cool. Bruder, die Hitze erstickt, das ist Sommer in Kuba. Hände aus dem Fenster, wir chillen im Cruiser. Fuck die Hater, keiner zieht mich runter. Runter bis unter den Untergrund. Bewundert, verwundert von unserer Kunst. Deine Jungs sind nicht ohne Grund verstummt. Ebow is back, bitch, kunterbunt. Bin Frida Kahlo der Straßen, Blasphemie und Phrasen. Gehasst und erhaben, taxiert und bemaßen. Streift nachts im schwarzen Wagen oder Rap in meinem Atem. Keine Zeit für dumme Fragen, ihr wolltet noch was sagen? Ihr hasst mich so richtig. Denn diese Kanakin hier macht sich zu wichtig. Ist zu gebildet, sieht zu gut aus. Zersprengt eure Kästen muslimischer Frauen. Autsch! Ich komm an mit Punani Power. Nani Power. Mami hat Punani Power. Nani Power. Ich komm an mit Punani Power. Nani Power. Mami hat Punani Power. Nani Power.
Hi everybody, my name is John Machera, and I'm thrilled to introduce the second program in the series, The Political Mandate of the Arts, organized by the Student Council and presented in partnership with the Wende Museum, the Thomas Mann House, Villa Aurora, and Dublab Radio. We warmly welcome our viewers on Zoom as well as our listeners. Today's interview will be conducted by council members Lexi Tooley, Natalie McDonald, Anya Nyman, and myself. We are very happy to welcome our guest speaker, Ebow. She is a Berlin-based German rapper of Kurdish descent who first attracted attention through guerrilla performances in laundromats, supermarkets, or the streetcar. Today, Ebow performs on more conventional stages, but her message remains provocative and political. Solo, but also as a member of the Berlin-based music collaborative Gaddafi Gals, she raps against sexism, racism, and homophobia for an open, caring, and equal society. Ebow is currently a 2023 Villa Aurora Fellow in Los Angeles. Today's program will start with a 45-minute discussion moderated by Lexi, followed by 15 minutes of a Q&A with the audience, chaired by Natalie. Please feel free to put your questions under the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen as the interview progresses. Keep your thoughts short and concise, no more than 1 or 2 sentences, and 1 question at a time. Your questions can be submitted at any point during the program. We would like to thank Susan Horowitz and Rick Feldman for generously supporting on-site and online discussion series at the Wende Museum. Now, Lexi will begin our discussion.
Hi, everyone, and thank you again for coming. Ebow, thank you again for being here today. I'm so excited to just have this discussion about your music and overall message. Personally, I've loved getting to learn more about you and listening to your music over the past few weeks in preparation for this meeting. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said, thank you so much. It means a lot to me, and thanks for having me. And yes.
Of course. And today I'd like to get started by talking a little bit more about your processes or inspirations when making music. And so to begin, I'm going to pass it to Anya with the first question.
Yeah, let me just pull it up. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a Wi-Fi problem, but 1 second. But yeah, I wanted to ask kind of about how you go about starting a project. So my question is, can you talk a little bit about the beginning of your artistic process, especially in relation to the politics of that process? Like when you begin a project that is more political, whether that's explicit or implicit, where and how does that inspiration come from? And how do you decide how you're going to approach the subject at hand?
Mm-hmm. I feel like finding a way to approach political topics in my music was like a long journey for me, because I grew up in a really political household. So like my mom was super political. I went to demonstrations when I was a baby, you know. It's like, for me, it was never a question, am I political or not, because that's just how I was raised. And that's also like how I was seen, you know, because my body, or just, you know, me as a person, I was already like politized, you know what I mean, right? So it was never like a question of, do I want to be political or not? It was more a question of, how can I make music and still make the songs sound good, but still like have complex topics in them, which are important to me. And first I started off with making, I wanted to talk about racism, for example, and I tried to make it funny. I wanted people to listen to it and be like, oh yeah, that's funny, she's right. But at some point I realized that it's just because I didn't want it to be this angry woman who's like, pointing at people with my finger and be like, yeah, this is wrong in the community and this is right, wrong in the society and whatever. So at some point I started to talk about these issues more in a way where it was not like talking to a German audience, but talking to people who experience the same as me, and also allowing myself to be angry, allowing myself to be, to just be comfortable with whatever feeling would pop up, That I feel like that was the most difficult part in this whole journey of making political music.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a second part? Sorry.
Yeah, I just had kind of a follow-up to that. You talked a little about audience, but I'm curious about how you think about audience reception when you start a political project. You talked a little bit about which audience you're speaking to, but I'm wondering if you set goals as to which audience you kind of want to reach with your work.
Mm-hmm. Actually, like, I'm not trying to think about, I'm not trying to think too much about audience, because at that point you're just like, okay, what is the audience expecting of me? What are listeners expecting from me? And so on. So basically what I'm always thinking of is like my friends. I'm actually like, if you ask me, I would say I make music for my friends, because that's like the circle which is close to me. These are the people that I know who are important to me. And in a bigger picture, then it resonates to a lot of other people who are just like my friends, So yeah, I guess I'm making music for my friends. And then like eventually some other people will like it too.
Thank you. Okay, so you spoke a little bit about this long journey with how you approached the message and the message that you wanted the public to receive. And I think along the same lines that you can touch on the long journey of where you've been performing. And Natalie has a question regarding that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lexi. So Ebow, your career began with guerrilla performances in laundromats, supermarkets, trams. And I love the idea of a guerrilla performance. I think it perfectly captures the inherently political and even like revolutionary potential of an artistic. So I was wondering, now that you're an established artist and performing in more conventional places, venues, do you ever miss the days of performing in these kind of less traditional, more public settings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes I miss it, because what I really loved about all these guerrilla streets concerts, or like in trams or whatever, like at public spaces, was that there was no hierarchy between you as an artist on a stage and then like the the audience who are on a lower level. And sometimes when I play like at huge festivals, then the stage is getting bigger and all of that, and then there is like this hierarchy, which is difficult, because when you are on the stage, you want to you want to share feelings with the audience. You want to, in best case, you create somehow a connection. And I feel like through these distances that you create with a huge stage, and then like barriers and whatever, and then there's the audience behind that, it's really difficult to reach people on an emotional level. So I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. I do believe it's possible. But for me, when I performed on the streets, it was like so easy because people could decide if they want to stay or if they just want to move on. And if someone has decided to stay, then it was already like somehow a connection between us. And also like not standing on something which is taller than the rest, you know, and yeah.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point, how in a concert venue, there's like a physical hierarchy, like you're actually higher up than the audience. And that also can create a kind of hierarchy emotionally, socially, I guess. Have you come up with any kind of strategies for overcoming that emotional remove? Like, are there ways that you've found to forge emotional connections with the audience, even when you are on a stage?
Like what I'm trying to do and what really helps me to connect with the people is to really look at the people. Like I'm going with my eyes through every row. I'm looking at the people. I'm really like, if someone is singing my lyrics, I'm singing it. I'm looking directly to them and I'm singing it with them together, because I want people to know that I see them. They're not just like a mass who came to a concert. It's like, I see you guys. I appreciate that you came here for me. I appreciate that you know my lyrics. I appreciate that you support my music. So that's what I'm doing. Like, and I'm talking a lot. Like when I'm on a stage, sometimes I feel like I'm a stand-up comedian or something. Yeah, I'm trying to communicate a lot. I'm talking a lot. It's not just music, because I feel like while talking on stage and also talking directly to people, I can create something that is not just a job, you know, not just this, okay, I was booked as a musician, I'm going on a stage, I'm going to perform, and this is pure entertainment, and then, you know, I'm gone again. But like leaving something there, like starting a conversation, or, you know, creating a memory together, and like a unique memory at each concert of mine. And yeah.
That's such a lovely way of thinking about it, of like a performance, like this unique moment of where you can like make meaning both for yourself and for the audience.
Yes.
And I think like it just sounds so like you have this really lovely way of kind of giving your music, but also kind of receiving from the audience, which is, yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, in terms of that meaning or connection that you create, I was wondering, who have been some of your artistic inspirations, or who's been able to form that kind of, whose music has been able to kind of give that connection to you when you're creating, or just purely on an artistic standpoint? But yes.
I think like one of the biggest influences growing up was Tupac, because I really loved his lyrics and how he also talked about or made music about political issues like society issues and all of that. And I really loved how he still managed to, like, it was at some point you could say it's conscious rap, but it was not like, when you think about Tupac, you wouldn't say like Tupac was a conscious rapper, right? Because he managed to make still like songs which are so beautiful, like for example Changes from him. I love that song. And even if the top, like, I think that's the most difficult thing when you are having such complex topics for your songs or messages, that even if you would change the lyrics, it would still be a nice song, you know, because it's just like the beat is nice, the flow is nice, the hook is super nice. So Tupac was a big influence, and then Missy Elliott was a huge influence. And I think what Missy did was also like super political in a way, because she wasn't like, you know, she wasn't like those standard beauty types which were at that time hyped, you know. She was no Lil Kim, she wasn't Foxy Brown or whatever, you know. And as a big Black woman to stand there and just not even going with what is hype, but like creating your own styles, creating your own flows, and not be scared about it, was something so beautiful to see. And yeah, I think till this day, Missy Elliott is a huge influence for me. And then who was also super important was MIA, because MIA was the first time that I saw a woman make political rap, but like she talked about such important issues, but then at the same time people would dance to it. And that was crazy for me to see. It was just like, wow, so you can make music which is like enjoyable, like you still will leave with a good feeling, you will feel empowered after it. And I think the same goes for Kendrick Lamar also, because I feel also the way that Kendrick Lamar is talking about political issues is still like, when you listen to the songs, you don't go out with a sad feeling, you go out with a feeling of yeah, empowerment. Also like you go out with a community feeling. And yeah, I think these are like my biggest influences.
Just to follow up, do you think that the genre of rap has been beneficial in helping you spread that message and helping kind of build off of all of these artistic inspirations as opposed to certain other genres?
Totally. And what is also interesting is that I don't like, okay, how should I explain? The thing is that all migrant kids in Germany, like, doesn't matter if you like, I don't know, like Eritrean or Ghanaian, you are Turkish, Kurdish, you are Iranian or whatever. We all grew up with hip hop. And the reason why that is just because, you know, for us as a teenager, American culture was such a big thing. Like everything in pop culture was American. And the one thing that we could relate to was like Black culture, not because we had like the same history, but because when we watch series like Moesha, or we, I don't know, listen to music like Tupac or Public Enemy, whatever, we could somehow resonate with the topics, you know, because that was the only time for us in pop culture where you could see people talk about racism, people talk about police brutality, you know. And like till this day, even like you could ask whoever, all the migrant kids, we all grew up with hip hop, we all grew up with Black culture. And that's why also the biggest rappers in Germany right now are all like Kurdish or yeah, Black rappers, or I don't know, it's like, of course there are also some German rappers, but I think that it's okay. And sorry, coming back to your question, I think the most important thing about hip hop is that you can directly message something, like you can directly talk about a topic, where you have like in pop music, you have more floral language around it. And so yeah, I think that's why we all listen to hip hop. And I think that's also a reason why I think that with rap, you can really spread a message directly to the people.
Thank you so much. Along those same lines, speaking about genre and politics, Natalie had a quick question about that.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering if you could maybe go into a little bit more about the genre of rap and hip hop, like musically, like what drew you to like what musically drew you to this genre, and what are some of the things you have to take into consideration as you go about writing one of your songs?
So when I go into writing, or what, like the way that I'm thinking when I'm writing my lyrics, I can't really describe it. It's like, for me, it's always like it's mostly like this. I get a beat from a producer, or like a beat package, and then I'm listening through the beats. And it's like, in German you would say, building a movie in your head. You know, it's like at that moment I'm somehow in a movie scene, and wherever that beat takes me, that's the movie scene that I'm into. So when I write my lyrics, it's always like I'm describing a scene in a movie that I have in my head. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but yeah, it makes okay. Yeah, but that's like my approach. And I don't know, could I answer your question? Or yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's really helpful and a really nice way of describing it. Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I had a quick question about just kind of the political language that you use as a rapper. And so when listening to some of your music, and we played the song before, the song Punani Power, I really like that song because you're essentially redefining or emphasizing a change in meaning for a word that's been used against women for so long. And when you were talking about Black rappers doing the same with race and things like that, it definitely stood out to me just because I could relate to things like that. But with this uplifting and empowering nature that your song creates, I was wondering what other topics you would like for communities or your community to reclaim, or what you've grown to reclaim since beginning your artistic journey.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I know that was a lot.
No, I'm just thinking like it's a nice question. I think like one topic that was also important for me to reclaim also with words is like I have this one song, it's called Kanek for Life. And Kanek, like Kanake, was used for guest workers who came to work in Germany. And first I think it was used for Tamil people, and then it was used for everyone, you know. And over the time, we also reclaimed that word already, and we had like movies, books, all with that title. And for me, it was important to also make a song with the title "Connect for Life" because I wanted to, because it's a term that was used a lot in the 90s and 2000s, but then it got lost somehow. And it didn't even get lost that much, but I just wanted to, it was important for me. Maybe it was like something selfish where I was like, okay, I need a song where I talk about this and where I talk about reclaiming that word and where I talk about our common experiences. And what's also really important for me, and it's not about reclaiming maybe, but maybe somehow it is, it was like, for me, it was important to make political music all the time, but also, you know, I'm just also having fun. Like life is not bad all the time and not political. Like it is political, but you don't see political the whole time. So for me, at some point, it was also political in a way, to make music about lesbian love, you know, to have lesbian rap songs, because that was something that I was missing. But I struggled a lot to do that because I was like, okay, but like, is it really that important to make love songs, you know? And at the same time, I realized, okay, but if it's like a topic that is missing in German rap, in the German rap scene, then it can also be super empowering, then it is also important and also political, you know, in a way. But you couldn't tell that from just listening to the lyrics, because the lyrics, it's like, you know, whatever, like yeah, it's just like love and meeting someone and all of that. But in a bigger sense, that was also somehow political for me and important to claim, you know.
With your audience, I just had a quick question. How is the public like reception? Like, is there a lot of support, and are there a lot of people saying like, I've been missing out on this and I've been wanting to hear this for the longest time, and now your music has given me kind of that space or that opportunity to have that representation?
Yeah, I get that a lot, especially at concerts, because always after the concerts I'm chilling with the people, and you know, because I also want to connect on that level, like I said before, not just doing the show and then leave. So I get that a lot, especially like from BIPOC people who are queer, and also like a lot from Kurdish people who are queer and come to me and be like, hey, I really miss this in music. I feel so represented. And also like all these layers, you know, like being queer, being Kurdish, being, I don't know, like a child of migrants. And yeah, so it's really nice to hear that, because it gives me a feeling of, okay, what I'm doing is important and it's right.
Thank you. And along those same lines of language and identity, I wanted to pass it over to Gianna to ask her question.
Yes, so while you grew up in Germany, another language was also spoken in your household. Is there any distinctive reason behind choosing to rap in German instead of rapping in another or multiple languages?
Mm-hmm. I think the reason why I never started to rap or write lyrics in Turkish is because Turkish lyrics are like on such a level of, it's such a floral language when you write lyrically. Sometimes I don't even understand what they're singing. I'm like, okay, this sentence makes no sense to me. And then I have to ask my parents, and then we're like having theories about what it could mean. You know, it's such a floral language. And also I think it's somehow a feeling of respect towards people who are writing lyrics in Turkish, you know, not just musical lyrics, but also like poems and all of that. And of course, I grew up with the Turkish language in my household, even though my parents are Kurdish, and they also spoke Kurdish at home, which I never understood. But yeah, for me, it's still like German language is my first language. Like it's not my mother tongue, but it's still like the language where I'm the best at, you know, so where I'm most fluent in. So I think it was just like normal for me to to make German rap. And also because I feel like or I think that hip hop or like rap music is so much about authenticity. And of course I grew up with the Turkish language, but it feels more authentic to me to write and rap in a language where I'm talking the most, like, you know, that I'm using the most during my day. But we have a lot of, like, I also have a lot of Turkish words in my lyrics, because slang or like, yeah, whatever, like all the youth words, they are coming from Turkish languages or Arabic languages, because we're like the biggest minority in Germany. So all the kids and everyone, like young people or people my age or whatever, they all know some words in Turkish.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I feel like language can also go into an issue of translation when you're moving between different languages. So like oftentimes people can bring up the argument that there's no direct translation between different languages. Like you said, like the true meaning, intent, and message can be lost. And there's been a lot of arguments about this. One of the main being like between the Bible and that the phrases aren't the original written type. So when you're writing and distributing your songs, do you have any worry that your songs could be translated and produce a different meaning, especially when they discuss such powerful topics such as racism, sexism, and homophobia?
I think I'm lucky because I make music, and in music, like, for example, I listen to Spanish music and I don't understand the lyrics, but I know when someone is singing about heartbreak, you know, because I know it's going down through the voice, through the lyrics, to the flow. And the same goes with, like, I listen to a lot of French music, like French rap. And also there, I get the vibe, you know, even if I don't speak French. So I think, yes, I do believe that in a lyrical way, a lot gets lost when you translate it. Also, like in writing, books, and whatever. But I think with music, you still have the chance to reach people on a different emotional level through the energy. And but yeah, I totally like agree with you. It's like also what I feel like it's a big thing, or like why I didn't rap in Turkish, is that you have in every language a different character. Like my humor is different when I'm speaking Turkish, my humor is different in English, my humor is different in German. And so I feel like it's about choosing like which character do you want to be, maybe, you know, like who am I the most comfortable with. I don't know if I could explain it, but yeah. Okay.
Thank you. And now I want to pass it to Anya for a similar question along the same lines of language.
Yeah, a lot of my question actually is quite similar to that, but I am wondering just like if you could elaborate more on how you think about language in your work, and especially about if you find, and you said this a little bit, but if you find that your kind of musical medium helps you get across linguistic borders, and whether that's a goal of yours, especially within Germany, within different migrant communities, or also internationally.
Totally. Like what's also super important for me is to show that I'm Kurdish, for example. So my last album was called Jane, and the way that it is written, like on the E you have something like a triangle on top of it, and it's so typical, this letter is so typical for Kurdish language. And they also have it in French language, but if you read it, like also as a Turkish person, or like from the Swana region, like you would get that this is Kurdish. And like coming from a household where Kurdish is actually the first language, but I never learned it because my parents were forced to learn Turkish. So for them, it was easier to speak Turkish with me and whatever. And then coming to a country and learning like a third language, it's like the Kurdish language is getting lost. So that was like something for me that I thought a lot about, you know, like how can I integrate the Kurdish language into my work, and especially as a language which is about to disappear, because the younger generations, especially like in my family, I think I have just one cousin who also speaks Kurdish. So that's one thing, like where I'm really like trying to get also Kurdish words into my lyrics, and not just Turkish words that we use for slang. And there's also another big rapper, Haftefil, he's also Kurdish, so he does that a lot. And it's funny because his words, like he's so big that some of his words made it into the dictionary, and they're actually like Kurdish slang words. And I feel like it's so nice if you like break a language and renew it and like bring slang into it. I think that's such an important part of talking and owning a language, you know. And especially like for my parents who were forced to forget their own mother tongue and learn a new language, and then, you know, yeah, for them also, like how they speak Turkish and how they integrate Kurdish words into the Turkish and all of that. So yeah, I love that I can do that with music. Like I can really just play around with words, with meanings, with language, and just see what comes out, you know, what I feel comfortable with, and owning it.
Yeah, I think that's really great. Like this kind of concept of playfulness with language, that can really kind of inject a new energy into a language, even if you don't speak it fluently. I think that's really wonderful, and probably also generates a lot of interest in the language, even for people that are Kurdish and also people that aren't.
Yeah.
Just to add on to that point, I also think it's really interesting because language has the power to affirm identities and experiences. And especially with these new slang words, it's something that a whole new generation can use for just really basic conversations or for new music in the future. And many people can now look back and, you know, reflect or be affirmed in their identities with that. Yes, but now I wanted to pass this to Natalie.
All right, so I think, Lexi, we're moving on to the Q&A. or question?
There was one more question.
Yeah, okay, very good.
Sorry.
No, I was just figuring out our timing. Yeah, okay, perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely. So yeah, so this is actually, you've touched a little bit on how your background growing up in Turkey of Kurdish heritage has influenced your work. But I'm also wondering, conversely, like flipping it around, has your artistic work, your artistic choices, your political aspirations helped you better understand your own identity?
Mm-hmm. Like, you mean being political helped me to understand more about myself in that way?
Exactly. And also
Mhm.
your musical career has your rap, your hip hop, has that kind of helped you, like even within a single song, like within this the
Mhm.
creative process of a single song, how much of that is kind of outward looking, like figuring out the world, I guess, and how much of it is maybe more like inward looking and figuring out yourself?
Yeah, nice question. Yeah, I feel like at some point, like, I'm making music since, I don't know, more than 10 years. And so I spent my whole 20s just like writing lyrics and making music, and, also developing my sense of what's important to me, what I want to talk about. Also within these issues, how I think about racism, how I think about sexism, homophobia, whatever, So for me, it's like actually sharing a process always that I'm having within myself, but also which I'm having with my surrounding. Like, for example, at my last album, I have this song called Prada Bag. And Prada Bag is basically about, because everyone, like, people always saying, like, why are rappers always talking about money, cash, all of the cars, like all these capitalist symbols. So in Prada Bag, I wanted to break it down and explain, like, okay, but if you are growing up broke and you are in a society which wouldn't take you like see you on the same eye level if you ain't wearing some brands or if you ain't driving a fancy car, how you gonna deal with that? And like most people, like all of the people who are in Germany, like most of them are coming from a household which wasn't rich, like, and so sharing this song was somehow a process for me to think about and rethink, like, okay, what is it that I actually want to say? And then afterwards I had a lot of conversations with other people who were like, yeah, but we need to see behind that, we can't just like reproduce it the whole time. But that's for me the thing which is between theory, like on a theoretical level I understand that, because I'm not like, yeah guys, capitalism, let's go. But on living level, like my reality, we're not at that point now. So I feel like this in between is where the space in between the theories that I'm having on my surroundings and the conflicts that I'm having within myself and my reality is what helps me to create my music. Yes,
Absolutely. And I think it reminds me of something you said earlier about how, one, you kind of were born political, both in your upbringing and in the fact that like your body was politicized, like so they're kind of like the personal is political and vice versa. Like it's so hard to kind of pull them apart sometimes. And I think also what you said earlier about allowing yourself to be angry and how transformative that was. And again, that's something internal and something that can be so kind of bound up with personal identity, but engages very deeply with the world and with politics. Yeah, so absolutely, that makes complete sense. Thank you.
Nice, thank you.
Okay, so we are unfortunately running out of time, and I'm going to now invite everyone to enter or put any Q&A questions that they might have. I don't think we're gonna have enough time to answer a lot. Do you think we'll have enough time? Last question. Yes, okay. Okay, well, really quickly, I'm going to pass it over to Gianna, and then we're gonna head to the Q&A. So everyone, if you have any questions, just please put them into the Q&A chat box.
Yes, thank you. Many of your political topics may be seen as controversial to different audiences. How do you deal with the different backlash or critics you encounter and remain true to your messages, truth, and beliefs?
I think I'm actually super lucky because I have a lot of people who are supporting me, and a lot of like good feedback that I'm getting. So I don't really get a lot of like back. I know there are a lot of people who don't like to see me where I'm at, you know, but I feel like I have such a huge positive audience that it doesn't even get to me, you know. It doesn't like, I don't really see the negative stuff. Of course, there are people on YouTube writing shit like, I don't know, whatever, you know, or on TikTok or I don't know, on other platforms. But like the feedback that I'm getting from people who support me is way bigger. Or maybe I just see it more often, or I don't know, you know, maybe I'm just focusing more on it. So yeah, I think I'm lucky with that.
Well, thank you so much. At this time, I'm now going to pass it over to Natalie to kick off our Q&A. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lexi. And a reminder to our viewers that you can, we invite you to enter questions into the little Q&A box found at the bottom of your screen at any point, one question at a time if you don't mind, but we would love to hear your thoughts after this really inspiring and thought-provoking conversation. So we do have a question here from Lorraine in the audience, who asks, have any of your performances or songs caused law enforcement to get involved?
Let me think. I don't remember really. I just know that yes, there was sometimes something going on, but I can't clearly remember. So I think it's often like stuff like this just happened, not at the performance itself, but like in Germany, I have a group like none of us is like white in my band or my groups, so sometimes we travel to really small cities and like villages, and then like we face some racist shit, or like even from the hotel owners or whatever. I think that's where there's like law informants. I don't know, but I guess you mean like you need to call the police or something like that, right? So yeah, but with the songs, no, I don't think so, or I can't remember right now.
Okay, well, I'm glad. But absolutely, yeah, no, that makes sense too, that traveling through different parts of the country, you would kind of encounter very different populations, I guess. Yeah. We have another question from Emma in the audience, who says, thank you so much for such a beautiful conversation. She says, Ebow, I'd love to hear more about your group work. How is working with other artists different from solo work?
How is it different? Actually, like I love to work. For example, I have this, I also have a band called Gaddafi Gals. And Gaddafi Girls is like somehow a playground for me because I work with two other artists and we're all coming from different musical backgrounds. Like one of them is coming more from the indie music part, and the other person is also like a producer. And it's just nice to work with different artists on a way of like hearing music the way that they hear it. because like, for example, with my band, I'm always the one who's like, guys, we need to have nice lyrics, and they don't even listen to the lyrics. Like, I write something and I'm singing it to them, they're like, oh yeah, the melody was nice, but did you hear, like, on that point we don't need this kick drum or whatever? And I'm like, did you even listen what I was saying to what I was saying? So, and they're like, oh, sorry, no. But at the same time, I'm not that good at, like, when I listen to beats and they make like small changes, I don't really hear that. So I guess the part that I love most about working with other artists is just like viewing or hearing music differently, and like changing perspectives.
Well, it's so interesting because from our conversation earlier, there is like a way in which music can be a universal language. You were speaking about listening to Spanish music and French rap, and how even if you don't necessarily understand the lyrics, how you still can pick up on what's being communicated. So there is a way that music is a universal language, but then also how different musicians kind of speak different musical languages in some ways. So that's really interesting to kind of hear what happens when you do encounter collaborators like that. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Another question from Stephen in the audience. How can the arts help us get beyond individual identity to help us find the common cause that can lead to a social movement and larger social and economic change?
I think the most important thing where we need to get away in arts, I mean, that's also something which is discussed about a lot, but like getting away from the idea of you as the genius artist who creates everything, and going to like showing who you work with, like showing your whole team. Like in my music videos, it's always like, for me, super important to have all my friends in it, or I work a lot with my friends, and that's because I want to show like, this is my surrounding, these are the people that influence me the most, you know. And also like giving credits to the people, like writing the producer name also on your YouTube video and stuff like that. I think generally, like in art, it's super important to really show, like put more effort into showing the people who worked on that stuff, you know. And like in movies, for example, I feel like it's so weird that we have like the director is the highest in this whole hierarchy, because, you know, in the history of movie making, it didn't start like that, you know. It was more important like who's doing the camera and all of that, and then you have like producers who are super important. And I think we need to leave all these hierarchies of creations, you know, what may be music, may be movies or whatever, you know. So I think that will help us to have a sense of yeah, that we are not, it's not just important to I don't know, to have this one genius who is creating, but like we need community to create, we need a surrounding to create, to grow, to change something.
Yeah, and that's, having watched your music videos, I think that's so clear that these are like acts of community building, and like music acts. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, wonderful. Another question we have, what is your relationship to appearance and style as an artist, particularly as a woman in music or as a woman in rap? Do you feel or experience any pressure to look a certain way, to express or exude sexuality, etc.?
Yeah, I feel like I'm asking myself a lot about like, this is a question I'm asking myself a lot about, like being a queer woman in rap, because I feel like I mean, nowadays, like you can be queer, you can be a lesbian woman, but then you still need to be sexy because you still need to be approachable for men. Or you go the opposite way and you're like super masked and you reproduce toxic masculinity in some way. And that's also like the style that you're representing. But if you're in between, if you're just like, you know, I'm not super mass, I'm not super femme, I'm somewhere in between. And that's also what I want to represent with my style and with my appearance. Then it's getting difficult because it's not that easy to consume if you're used to the way that how people should look, you know, what they should look like, and how we also have a picture of like how gay men should perform or how they should appear, or you know, like it's not just about in a binary thinking of like what man and woman should look like, but also on different levels of queerness. So yeah, I'm asking myself that a lot, and I'm also playing a lot with that, because sometimes I just, you know, dress more mask, sometimes more femme, and whatever that is, you know. But I think I would be easier to approach if I would just go for one style, because then people can put it in a box. And yeah.
So do you ever feel like kind of viscerally pressure to present in a certain way, or do you really just
No.
Okay.
No, it's not pressure. It's more like I realize that a lot, you know. It's just like a process of okay, this is how people approach me. And also for myself, because I'm not just doing my own stuff, you know, I go to shootings for different brands or whatever, and I had to learn to tell the people like, hey, don't put too much makeup on my face. I'm not the type who goes super femme. And just like also to communicate with people that you work with how you want to appear, also with stylists, you know, who are coming up to you and they see you and they're like, oh my God, you have such nice long hair. Let's just go with this style and I give you a dress. And then still at that point, like being able to say, hey, I know maybe right now I appear super femme, but I don't really wear dresses, so I don't want to do that. And yeah, I feel like it's not pressure, but it's like a lot that I had to learn in a way of like to communicate with others how I want to be presented.
And like advocating for yourself
Yes,
and for your identity.
totally.
Yeah. Absolutely. Another question, is there a difference between the reception of your songs in Germany between Turkish and Kurdish youth?
So the question means if we are seen differently, like Kurdish and Turkish people?
Are your songs like, do Turkish and Kurdish people like respond differently to your songs?
Totally, because I mean, Turkish people also listen to a lot to my music, but then there are also like a lot of like fascist Turkish people who are then like, oh my God, you're Kurdish, you are Alevi, which is like a religious minority. Like I'm the minority of minorities in Turkey, so it's like a lot of Turkish people who also like don't want to see me where I'm at, you know, and really like coming along with them hate comments, which are similar to neo-Nazi hate comments. Like it's the same basically. And for Kurdish people, it's a lot of like empowering, you know. They come to me and they be like, okay, hey, we feel seen, it's nice to have you. And also, like I said, a lot of rappers which are like popular are Kurdish, like of Kurdish backgrounds. So there's a nice creative Kurdish scene in Germany, and also they have a lot of Turkish fans. And yeah.
And kind of along similar lines in terms of response to your music, you mentioned earlier how you do end up in smaller towns or villages in Germany and have to deal with racist responses. Do you experience any difference of any kind when performing in the former East or the former West of Germany? And if so, what do those differences look like?
Yeah, it's like, for example, last year I started my tour in a city that I've never been to before, and I probably would never go there because they're known for have a lot of right-wing people. And so we went there and we were like, oh shit, we just hope like nothing bad will happen, because, you know, it's always like we're I mean, we are mostly like also traveling by train, and then you see the people already like staring at you and whatever. But then at the concert, I realized how much these people who came there need to see people like me performing there, you know? Because if you have a city where there are a lot of right-wing people, that means that there are also left-wing people who really need support, you know, and who are really happy to see people who represent them, or like people who make music which is empowering for them. So at that point I realized, okay, it's really important for me to go to these cities and to perform there. And also like Leipzig is one of these cities which is close to Berlin, and used to be East. So Leipzig has like a huge leftist scene, so they're really supportive. When I go there, it's like, hey, like it's sold out and people are really happy to have like a nice concert, a nice time. So yeah, but that's also something that I have to learn and realize for myself.
And one last question before we do wrap up for the evening. Do you have any words of advice or inspiration for aspiring artists, maybe especially rappers, particularly those from maybe traditionally underrepresented backgrounds in the genre?
I think like I have like two advice that I always give. It's like the one advice is to realize that making art and making music is a process. So don't wait till you think that what you're doing is perfect and then it's the time to bring it to an audience. Like you need to grow in front of an audience and also be patient enough with yourself to do that. Because I feel like a lot of people don't start, it may be music or whatever, they don't start because they feel like what they're doing isn't good enough to start. But you really need to like just start and then like grow in front of people, and you will make failures and whatever, but don't just watch, you know, like be in the traffic. And the other advice is like that I'm always giving to people who are like because I don't know if I got the question right, but like when you're from a minority which is underrepresented and all of that, that I know sometimes it feels like you need to represent a whole like group of people, and then there's a lot of like pressure on that because you don't want to disappoint someone and whatever. But I think the most important thing is that you just represent yourself really and the people who are around you, because by that you will already represent a group of people. And there's not just one story which can be told, you know, because it's always like with minorities, always like that you just have one story which can be told, but it's like so many different stories, and like taking up that space for yourself and creating your own story. Yeah, that's it.
Well, I think that's such a beautiful note on which to conclude our conversation this evening, although I wish we could keep going. But thank you so much, Ebow, on behalf of the Student Council for joining us. It's been a real pleasure and privilege talking with you. You've certainly given me a lot to think about. And yeah, it was really thought-provoking, really inspiring. Thank you also to, yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank you guys also. Sorry, continue.
No, please. No,
I just wanted to say it was such a lovely interview with all of you, and I really enjoyed it. And the questions were really nice. There were some questions that I haven't heard before, and I'm always thinking like I heard all the questions. So thank you a lot. Thank you for listening to my music and just like preparing this interview. And I really appreciate it. And yeah,
well, it's
so nice.
We had so much fun, and exactly gave us so much to think about too. And please, our viewers, please go and listen to Ebow's work on YouTube, on her website. so much to listen to. And also on that note, thank you so much to our viewers for attending this evening, and our listeners as well, who will be tuning in. We hope you also will consider joining us for our next program on Wednesday, March 22nd. And this is our next program in the political mandate of the Arts series. The Student Council will be speaking with the Palestinian Syrian poet Hayat al-Madoun. Again, that's March 22nd, 4:15 p.m. So once again, thank you, Ebow. Thank you to my colleagues on the council, and thank you to our viewers for joining us. Have a great evening, everyone.
Yeah, bye.